Today's marketer has a complex job. We have to figure out how to deliver on the functional elements of marketing while using all the marketing tech tools at our disposal. At the same time, we must stay in touch with the emotional and relational aspects that really make consumers take action. And within that, we have social elements. How do we inject our marketing into the conversations that our consumers have with each other? And then finally, we have to align our systems of thinking to fit with the thinking and journeys of our consumers. It's a lot. But today, if you joining me on the podcast is the Vice President of Community Impact for Jackson Healthcare, where he helps leverage people, programming, and partnerships and philanthropy to improve access to healthcare and the well-being of young people. As a writer, he helps professionals cultivate a deeper understanding of who they are and what they do and the work they do, and includes their values and their purposes. Um, I discovered his solid advice to marketing and business professionals through his articles on businessgrow.com. And I'm delighted to welcome as a guest to the podcast, Keith Jennings. Hey, Keith.
Great to be here. I'm so happy to be talking with you today.
Definitely. I'm really looking into talking with you as well because, I've gone through a lot of your articles and, they not only enlighten me with your insights, but also have some questions that I really want to discuss with you.
Let's do it.
All right. So one of your articles you have on businessgrow.com that I really like. In that article, you say that businesses hire marketing to do a variety of jobs, such as brand awareness and lead generation, SEO, and more. But you explain that these jobs aren't limited to their functional elements. They come with a mix of functional, emotional, relational, and spiritual elements. So can you walk us through those jobs of marketing beyond the functional jobs that we're accustomed to marketing delivering?
Absolutely. And let's even back up a little further to kind of set the stage, for this language we're using and
Hmm.
what this is. So, all this started for me. I read an article in Harvard Business Review, had to been 2008-ish. I can't even remember exactly, by Clay Christensen. And in it, he tells this story about this fast food company that wanted to sell more milkshakes. And he said, they bring in the traditional market researcher. They analyze, what flavors do we have? Yeah, they do the in restaurant, customer interviews and drive through interviews to say, what do you like in a milkshake and what makes you buy a milkshake? Do all the traditional marketing stuff. And the net is, the fast food chain launches a new marketing campaign around all the research and insights and buyer personas that this research revealed. And sales of milkshakes went nowhere. So they bring in Clay and team, and they started with the fundamentally different questions. Their question was, what jobs do people hire milkshakes to do in their lives? And I loved that question because what they learned was they had a morning crew of customers who hired milkshakes for breakfast. So they found out, and they've done donuts, they've done croissants, they've done sausage biscuits, everything, and they were trying to hire something that could last 20 minutes, be enjoyable to consume, could be consumed with one hand, didn't get your fingers messy or your clothes and pants messy, and that held off hunger till lunch. And, in interviewing them, they found milkshakes were the only thing that did that job well. And then they found a group of afternoon milkshake buyers who were hiring milkshakes as yes moments with their kids. So, as a parent, right, what's your days and weeks? Can I do this? No. Can I have more screen time? No. It's like, you got to do your homework, get your shower. We got to get to practice. And, it was finally a moment where, a bewildered parent, can I have a milkshake? Yes. That, they were actually able to hire that. And so what he explored and unpacked in that is that, sure, milkshakes, do a functional job of hunger or, just needing to consume some food and calories. But they have an emotional job they do for us through the taste and textures that we experience when we, drink a milkshake. They have a relational job in that, you tend not to drink milkshakes by yourself. You tend to drink it with family members or friends or, in social settings like that. And in this case, I couldn't say or not whether a milkshake has a spiritual element. I don't know if it somehow connects people, to the greater good or the universal in some way. But I just found that fascinating. So what I found out, and I'm the son of a CEO, so I grew up, with a dad who kind of jokingly, fired a lot of marketing people. And I got interested in, what is it that's bothering you about what they're doing, and what do you want, what are you wanting the marketing to do, in your hospitals, and all that. And so it was kind of these little pieces that finally came together when I read that article to say, we hire everything in our lives to do specific jobs for us. And those jobs they don't just have a functional dimension. They have an emotional dimension, a relational dimension, and in many cases, a spiritual dimension. And the more clear we can get about all those dimensions and get clear about that job we're trying to do, the better shot we have of coming together as a team and accomplishing that. So going back to your question, which is, what are the jobs marketing can do beyond the functional? The answer is it's infinite. It's whatever job that team in that situation with that customer base or that client base needs to get done. And so that's why I feel like, it's such a great place to start in marketing, whether it's an agency client relationship or whether it's a CEO CMO relationship or whether it's even a CMO to marketing team relationship, or a marketing team to contractor relationship. Is always great to start with the question, what job are we hiring marketing to do today? And then you can get kind of granular with that. You can say, what job are we hiring our website to do? What job are we hiring this email campaign to do? What job are we hiring this podcast to do? And really get everybody around the table to kind of surface maybe those unconscious jobs that they're needing done with that beyond just the functional. So I hope that kind of gives you some tee up and answers that.
It definitely does. And I love that you have the angle of the son of a CEO who's fired marketers, because
Yes.
I mean, that's for the audience, that the portion of the audience that's marketers, we want to hear that. We want to know, what can we do not to get fired, right?
Right.
So that's an interesting perspective that I like to hear from you.
Yeah.
And for me as a content production agency owner, in order to make absolutely sure that we can deliver on a client expectations, the first question that we ask the prospect is, what do you want this content to do for you?
That's it.
What do you want this video, this podcast to do for your business?
That's the jobs question, right?
Right. So, what are some other tips you could provide to help marketers, or even the executives who these marketers work for, as well as the marketers and the agencies that they hire? What's some advice on helping them better align their expectations?
And it starts with, it always starts with that jobs question. And I would say it really starts, our tendency as people is to start with a self-orientation. So when you put that in a business, it starts with an organizational orientation. And so step one is just stepping around to the other side of that coin. We're looking and seeing the number 9 on the ground, and our customers are seeing the number 6. And so, it's the same shape. We're just seeing it from different sides. And so it really starts in those collaborative type environments with, let's hop over first before we even talk strategy or anything, tactical or strategic from that nature. Let's step over the customer side. Let's better understand who they are, what their world looks and feels like today, and get clear on what jobs they're hiring products like ours or services like ours to do. And let's even determine if they really, really value that, because not hiring anything is also an option. And so my advice would be getting over there, if and where possible, get out in the field with customers or clients. If that's not an option, given today's environment, at least get on the phone with them, and just listen, more than anything else, just listen, ask questions. And as you uncover kind of the jobs they're trying to get done, then you move back over to your side and say, okay, what job What job as a business do we need to get done here? And what's the center of the what's the crossover section of the Venn diagram there, where
Hmm.
we can help our customers or clients get the job they need done while we're at the same time accomplishing the job we need done. And then, within that is understanding it's always more than a functional job. You're right. There's
Hmm.
relational elements to that, how we look to others, how we belong. There's emotional elements of the sensory experience that each at the table is going to have within that exchange. And in many cases, I'd say there's a connection to a greater good or more universal themes there as well. So getting as clear and granular as possible on that will set up the right metrics.
Well, let's dig a bit into that to the relational part of that, because I guess in terms of relational, you also have to talk about the consumer's conversation with each other.
That's it.
And so let's talk a bit about, how consumers communicate with each other about our brands. And I want to introduce the audience to a term that I learned from you. And I think this term dates back to like 2007 when Yuri Engstrom mentioned it. And the term is social objects.
Yes.
And before we discuss the term social objects, maybe you can share your definition of what a social object is.
A social object, and full kudos to Hugh McLeod with Gaping Void. This is where I learned it from,
Okay.
and then from there just dug deeper. A social object is any person, place, thing, or idea that brings two or more people together. That's a social object. It can be tangible. It can be intangible. It can be that milkshake.
Hmm.
It can be a cup of coffee. It can be a meeting. It can be warm cookies. It's just anything, any noun that attracts two people together to form a relationship and socialize. That's a social object.
And it's funny that since we're talking about all this food here, the social object that came to mind was a chicken sandwich from was it Popeyes. I
Yeah.
mean, that became a social phenomenon object
Yes.
because it wasn't just about the sandwich; it was about conversations about the sandwich and have you
Yes.
had the sandwich and do you like a pickle or not, or it became a social object.
That's it. All trends, every single trend that we see on Twitter or read in the news or hear from the latest research, all trends are essentially driven by social objects. And they're built around social objects, and it could be a news event. It's infinite what it can be. The trick is, as human beings, we have to connect and relate and socialize with one another. And therefore, we are going to find something we're going to find many things throughout our days to become the social objects that allow us to have those interactions.
So how does a brand, knowing that there is a such thing as a social object? I mean, we do them. We think of them as a campaign, or we don't think about let's create a social object. We think about a campaign or how do we promote this content or this product. And social objects kind of just happen if we're lucky. Nobody plans a social object. So
Mhm.
is there a way, and maybe you even have some examples of how it's been done, but can a company actually create a social object and on purpose and then benefit from it?
Yes, and where I'm at to this point is saying it's probably easier for some product people than it is for service people.
Mhm.
and
Okay.
it arguably may be a little bit easier for B2C folks than it is for B2B folks, but it's possible. It just requires work, and that's our job. That's our
Mhm.
job. So, and again, it goes back to listening. It's funny in the marketing world, we talk about content marketing, we talk about that. These are social objects for marketers. If you think about it, right?
Mhm.
Podcasting. What's a current social object? Is Club Room. Club Room is just the
Clubhouse.
latest of a billion social objects for marketers that bring marketers together to talk and
Mhm.
share ideas and connect with one another. But when it comes to our businesses, unless you're extremely lucky, doubtful your product or service is ever the social object.
Unless you mess up.
That's it. So, if you're an
Yeah.
artist, if you're a creator, if you're a maker, absolutely the product or the experience you're creating is in and of itself a social object. Could be a painting, could be a concert, could be, a song or an album, things like that. In the business world, it's almost like we have to come in through the sides. Social objects could be trends, could be news, could be jobs to be done. To me, jobs to be done is the heart of the social object, which is, I've got a problem and I'm thinking about my problem. And if
Hmm.
you bring up my problem, now that's a social object. So we can discuss and I'm willing to listen to you and connect with you to learn more about how I might be able to solve this problem. Um, that's
Actually,
really,
I'm
yeah, go ahead.
thinking, so you had me thinking when you said that it's easier for B2C than it is for B2B. And it certainly is. And as a B2B marketer, you had me trying to think, can I even think of a B2B social object? And I think the case may arise when a particular brand has a new innovation, and within the circle of those users, that innovation becomes a topic.
Right,
Like, for
that's it.
example, for me, let's say my business social sphere would be, say, marketing automation or CRM.
Hmm.
So if all of a sudden there's a merger, let's say Salesforce bought HubSpot or something,
Hmm.
that merger becomes a social object because
Exactly.
everybody who I work with at HubSpot or Salesforce, we're going to talk about it,
That's
you know,
it.
and their brand is going to probably benefit from all that conversation. So maybe these, mergers, acquisitions, product announcements, new reveals of a new product offering might actually be a social object.
Exactly. And really, it goes back to where we started, which is if you understand the jobs your customers or clients are trying to get done in their lives, you can connect. You can naturally kind of find topics and information, what we'll call content. You
Hmm.
can find content that can become or be used as a social object to try to, create an exchange or a connection there. Absolutely.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I want to pivot a bit, and this is might be digging a bit into psychology, but I always say that that's a large part of marketing. You have to understand psychology when you're doing the marketing. I want to talk about a common marketing mistake that you recently wrote about on LinkedIn, and for me, one of the great things about talking with interesting people like you, Keith, is that I get to benefit from books that you've read and I haven't. So
I feel the same way.
yeah, so you referenced a Daniel Kahneman book entitled "Think
Yes,
Fast and Slow," and I know now it's a marketing or business staple, and I say I have to add it to my repertoire because I
it's a
don't have it
beast.
yet.
It's a
I
beast
have
of a
to read
book.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in that book, I do know this. He dives into system one and system two thinking. And in your article, you paralleled this type of thinking in your LinkedIn article to demonstrate an avoidable marketing mistake that businesses make. So first, before we go into that, and again, let's define system one and system two thinking.
Yeah. So the way Kahneman, kind of teaches it is system one thinking. We operate on that. We've kind of got two brains. Let's start with that. So imagine we've got two brains, and there's a switch that flips between the two brains. So we're using one or the other in every situation and moment. 95% of the time, we are operating on system one thinking, and so system one thinking is unconscious. Is predominantly unconscious and automatic thinking. So, a fun example may be, you're at home, you just had dinner, you drink a lot of sweet tea, you got to go to the bathroom. You do not think about, what, I wonder what the best path to the restroom is. We don't even think about things like that. You just do them. And I use this math example to kind of say, you can feel system one thinking by just saying 2 + 2 = and everybody knows four. There's no calculation, no pen and paper. Nobody's got to grab a calculator. It's just coming straight from memory. It's automatic. We've just memorized that number. We're not even doing math. We're just reciting from memory. So system one thinking is that. System two thinking is conscious level thinking and is complex thinking. And the way Kahneman describes it, system one is fast thinking, system two is slow thinking. So
Hmm.
another example is, where our system one brain says, oh, 2 + 2, oh, it's 4. Then if you do, okay, 643 times 12 is, system one brain says, That's you, system two. And the switch
Yeah.
flips. System two kind of wakes up and says, okay, I need a pencil and a piece of paper. I need a calculator. We got to do some work now. And so system one thinking is what Kahneman describes as we operate in cognitive ease.
Mm-hmm.
And system two thinking is cognitive strain. So we can only stay in system two mode for short bursts and short periods, and then we just get tired. And as you think back through your business days, think of days where you had to be just on dealing with complicated problems and people issues. You're
Mm-hmm.
mentally drained and spent by the end of those days, and that's because you were forced into system two thinking. For more, it's like a muscle you have to kind of exercise. So that's kind of the difference between the two and how they work.
Okay, so now we have that clear. Let's talk about how marketers apply that, because in your article you mentioned that we make this mistake sometime by sticking with system one.
That's it. And no, this is a human thing,
Not a
right?
not a
It
marketer's
comes
thing.
out of this. All comes out of our, the cognitive biases that we all have.
Mhm.
They're unconscious. We're unaware of these things, and so our brain naturally kind of tries to phone it in to protect us. Right? It's trying to keep our energy down. And so great example of that is whether it's a CEO or a CMO or an agency or whatever. We seem to immediately have answers to every marketing problem, right? Oh, you just need a website. Oh, you just need a landing page. Oh, you should just write a blog post on that. You need to post this on social media more. You need to do it 3 times a day, not 2 times a day. Like all those answers are typically system one answers because they're easy. We don't have to think about it. And so my encouragement is just to say, what if we're wrong? What if we don't know what's going to work best in a certain situation, even if it's a marketing problem that we've solved and encountered many, many times? How do we really know that the same application to the same problem is going to work this time? So, I always encourage people. I mean, we've got to be efficient. We've got to be productive. So I'm not saying we have to, drag down every single decision, to put a lot of thinking behind it. But it's a good exercise. I look at it as just a good exercise as we encounter day-to-day problems as marketers, to maybe just have one of us assigned each day to be the wait a minute person and be like, well, we're jumping to this, we're all jumping to this solution really fast. Now let's think about it for a second before we just rush forward with doing what we're used to doing. And that's kind of how I encourage, marketers and executives to kind of take a step back every once in a while and just challenge and test ourselves before we, kind of keep phoning it in.
And I think there's 2 dimensions to that, even because there's the system one thinking or two thinking that we have in terms of creating a solution or creating a thing. And, we have to decide whether we quickly do something like you said, landing page or new marketing campaign, or do we go deeper with it with analysis? That's for us doing our output part. I think there's also a dimension of what do we want our consumers to have to do, whether it be system one or system two thinking. So when we create something, is this creation going to require them to do system one or system two to respond?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And because, as a marketer, I've always operated by the Steve Krug's "Don't make me think" approach, by
Ah.
not making the content consumer think more than they need to in order to receive my message. So in that light, maybe system one thinking still has its place in marketing.
It's funny you bring that up. I'm struggling to remember her name. She's a neuroscientist, and she's written for the business world, and I'm blank as we're talking right here. But it'll come. It'll come. But anyways, I remember reading an article by her on this very thing. She said, imagine, let's just, make up a name, Samantha, right? Samantha is your client, and you're a SaaS business that has, 3 levels of solutions. And you've kind of got the entry level solution, you've got the popular one, and you've got the premium. And our marketing always says offer the 3, emphasize the one. And let's say we've got Samantha as a client. So Samantha's been a client with us, for 2.5 years, and her 3-year contract's coming up, and she's got to renew. So this is where the system 1, system 2 exercise is a really good one based on exactly what you're teeing up here, which is, do we want Samantha to take a step back and think about this? Or do we want Samantha not to take a step back and think about this? And the timing of the marketing is specific to an interaction like that. So if we say, we know Samantha's overwhelmed right now. She's really busy. If we ask her what she wants to do, just by asking her what she wants to do, we're triggering system 2 thinking. And Samantha's brain is going to say, well, crap, if I've got to put in the cognitive strain to make this decision, I might as well go ahead and do the research to see what all's out there. So it may be a benefit, and I just want to put a little asterisk on what I'm saying, and this can be used in a manipulative way too. And I'm actually I just don't believe in that. I believe try to be upfront. But to me, I'm saying, let's say we know Samantha and we know the situation and season Samantha's in right now, and we know she doesn't want to deal with this right now, because that's not the job she's trying to get done. So the job she wants us to help her do is not to have to think about it right now. It may be better just to work with Samantha's system 1 thinking and say, let's renew. And then after you renew, way before we get to the next re-up period, let's schedule some calls and let's walk through where you are as a business and where you are as a client and what we have to offer to see if the level you're at still makes sense for you. So that's a great way of kind of using system 1, system 2 thinking, for the benefit of the seller and the buyer.
Definitely. So Keith, I'm going to continue to pick up on your articles that you're writing on Business Grow and on LinkedIn. I'm glad we're connected. So tell me, thank you for joining me today, first of all, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Before we go, though, tell me where our listeners can find you and learn more from you.
Absolutely. I'm pretty much I don't do as much social media anymore. So I would say LinkedIn, Keith Reynold Jennings on LinkedIn, and keithjennings.com is my website. So I would say those are the 2 easiest places to connect. Of course, I'm on Twitter and Instagram and all that, but I'm not very active. I use those more for listening these days. So I say keithjennings.com and hit me up on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, thanks again, Keith, for joining us. It was really a pleasure to have a conversation with you.
I appreciate you.
Definitely. And thanks to the listeners. If you're listening to the podcast and want to also see Keith and I, video of this podcast and others are also available in the podcast section of contentmonster.com. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Business of Marketing podcast, a show brought to you by contentmonster.com, the producer of B2B digital marketing content. Show notes can be found on contentmonster.com, as well as aleejudge.com. To continue the conversation, be sure to follow the podcast on your favorite podcast platform.